All right, welcome to the 11th Books and Art from Japan show. I'm Brandon Chin. I've been based in Japan for 10 years and I've been going live daily, aiming for 100 lives to talk about the different types of Japanese art that I offer, like no theater mass, as well as the books that I write. Like my most recent book, Yokai Shadows. It's going to have some special art in between each chapter. And going live like this allows me to talk to my readers directly and also get that practice in for going live. Because this is how we interact with the people. So yes, as always, I'm going to start off with a quick story. And then we get into the books and art from Japan. First quick story, let's see what we can pull from the bookcase. Here's a big one. Oh yeah, this is going to be a big one here. So first quick story. I started writing in 2016. I started writing seriously in 2016. The first time I knew I wanted to be a novelist, I was 7 years old. I wrote in my journal, if I could be any storybook character, I would be a writer. And I would be rich. That's how I wrote it. I'm 7 years old at the time, so makes sense. 9 years old. Thank you to my parents, who are from Jamaica, who signed me up for a book writing camp in during the summer. So there's like a summer camp where you had to finish a book by the end of the camp. And I still have that book right here. It's called Norbert the Nerd. Yes. About my story being an outcast. Growing up in a Jamaican household, first generation American. 9 years old. Growing up in white spaces with a little bit of Chinese ethnicity inside of me, so it was all a mix of different types of things. Anyway, 9 years old, wrote my first book. Over time, I obviously didn't write any more books, but it was 2016, after a breakup in Hokkaido. I was working in the mountains at a ski resort called Hoshino Resorts. If you're familiar with staying in Japan and going to extreme seasonal sports, you're probably familiar with the hotel chain that is Hoshino Resorts. It's up there. It's like a luxury chain, basically. Or I should say they have luxury options as well. Anyway, I was the only Westerner there. It was after I broke up with my ex, who is from Hokkaido. Go to work there in the mountains, secluded with my thoughts, emotions. 3 years in Japan. What do I really want to do with the rest of my life? At that time, I was probably 25, 26? No, 24. I was 24 at the time. And, yeah, it's like, what should I be doing? Then all that's like literally my window. If I open the windows from my dorm room, which was really a hotel room, it was the older buildings the resort stopped using after they renovated. And so they got this, welcome to the show, Yogo-san. They had this old hotel buildings to the side that they gave to the staff. So the staff was able to use these hotels And I felt pretty comfortable. It was a huge space, and the view was amazing. Opening windows, there's literally a winter wonderland. I always would open it up at night because there were like lights in the forest. Always wondering if I could see a magical reindeer just galloping through the snow with flakes flying up. But I never saw that. Anyway, it was a good time. Good time, especially for where I was at mentally. Reevaluating my life. I had graduated university, got my first job out of graduation in Japan as an English teacher. 6 months in, I was like, nah, I don't want to do this. I have 6 months left on my visa. I want to make sure I do something where I build skills. Apply to work at Hoshino Resorts in the reservation center, booking vacations for wealthy travelers, mostly from Asia, but that spoke English. So Singapore, China, etc. And I come to the conclusion that, wow, I already knew what I wanted to do at 7. Why did I ignore that? So I start writing on my off time from my day job. I would work from basically 8 to 5, I think it was. Go back, eat, maybe take a quick nap. Write for a few hours at night. Do it again and over and over and over. And that's how I wrote my first nonfiction book, Know Thy Beast. So before I started writing fiction, I knew I needed something, a smaller project, and I also wanted to figure out like who I was. And so, Know Thy Beast. I don't think I have that one on me right now, but yeah, it was self-evaluation of what I wanted to do with my life. Obviously, it's in the title, Know Thy Beast. It was based on a values, system, mindset. I was setting myself up to become a full-time novelist. Wrote that, got the cover done, got editing done. Really short book, but it gave me the motivation and confidence to know that I could do this for real. And so after my Hoshino Resorts job ended, I was there for like 6 months because my visa was a 1-year visa. If you've ever lived in Japan, you know that they don't want foreigners. No, it's not that they don't want foreigners. It's that it's very tight, and you gotta do a lot of stuff. Gotta jump through a lot of hoops if you want to stay long term. And back to the U.S. And so I went back to the U.S. Within 1 week of arriving. I started my company, Quill Chin LLC. If you still active to this day, obviously quill is the quill of writing with the feather and the ink, and then QIN is chin, but IQ, it is the first dynasty in China. As I said before, I have a little bit of Chinese in me, so always curious. It's always that small percentage of something that influences the rest, right? And I also grew up with martial arts movies. We can talk about that later, but that was my mother and father loved those type of movies back in the day. They used to go to those cinemas back in Chicago after they moved from Jamaica as teenagers, and they would check out those movies, black and white, in the theater, martial arts, all day. I think they went in Chinatown, but anyway. Yeah. So that small percentage of me made me very curious in ancient Chinese culture. I looked it up. First dynasty to bring together the different groups in China was the Qin dynasty. They were pretty brutal. They also burned books. But I like the concept of bringing different things together. Because if you know about Chinese history, it is that it's not, a lot of people like to compare the US to China, but when really China is like a civilization, whereas US is just a country. China had all types of different ethnic groups and different languages, and they were like, we gotta be unified. So they stopped the warring period. If you know the Three Dynasties, very popular book, or I think it's called maybe it's Three Kingdoms, or I played the video games, I didn't read the books. Anyway, I like that concept of bringing different elements together to form a cohesive whole, because that's how I felt about myself. Jamaican, Chinese, born in America, in white spaces, creative, but also understanding that, you gotta get practical skills as well. So all those things, bum, 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 bum. And I named my company Quilled Chin, except someone in the Florida offices decided that out of the 2 L's in Quill, 1 L was not eligible enough to accept, and so they dropped an L, and that's why it's Quil, Qin. If you're interested, you can go check out sunbiz.org, and you can actually see all of the documentation and stuff like that. What's up, Manny from Itoshima? And so that was 2016. That was the first time that I actually took writing seriously. And I was like, listen, this is it. This is what I want to do. And so I sat in my room for a year and a half, scared. I moved back home, so I was with my parents, but scared of my mom. Because, my dad was in the Navy, was stationed somewhere else at that time for a short stint, but she was like, what are you doing reading all these, I remember reading all these books. What are you doing reading all these books? I'm like, you're the one that reinforced getting a library card when we were younger and all this stuff. So they instilled that love for reading in me and my brother when we were younger. So I appreciate that. Anyway, sat in my room and pumped out 4 novels, one of which is The Nanking Revolution, which speaks about the Nanking Massacre, but flips it on its head. So it's historical fiction, but alternative historical fiction. Flipping it on its head, the Nanking Revolution, making it more of a positive story. But I knew that if I was going to touch this subject, it's a very controversial subject. I don't think it's even taught in Japan, actually. Just to give you a brief overview of what it's about, it is basically where World War II, Japan was going crazy in Asia, messing up people's societies, biology, etc. I'm wondering how much I can actually speak on this without, I don't know if it's gonna get me get my videos taken down or whatever. But yeah, we'll talk about it from a light perspective here. Japan goes into China, blows up a bridge. I think that's called the Marco Polo Bridge or something. That was the first instance. From there, after that, they go into the then capital, Nanking, and start raging. They did some horrible stuff. So horrible, in fact, that Nazis that were there at the time that basically controlled the health. It was like a European healthcare center. Even the Nazis were like, this is insane. What is this? This is too much. they were doing some crazy stuff. And because I knew it was such a controversial topic, and I wanted to keep myself intellectually humble, I made sure that I did my research on the Nanking Massacre. And of course, books that are published on the topic could be quite biased. There's a very popular one that I also read and checked out from the library. I think her name is Iris Chang. But I also made sure that I got other books that were not readily available. This is one. Hidden Horrors, Japanese War Crimes in World War II. And the good thing about this is that it's written by a Japanese. So you can't speak about, oh, this was biased and untrue. Also, I got another book written by a Japanese. Also, speaking about the horrors of the Nanking Massacre. This one was very hard to come by. It was not even available on Amazon in America. I had to hit up my cousin, who is opposite me. I'm 1/4 Chinese, 3/4 Jamaican. He's opposite, so he's 3/4 Chinese, 1/4 Jamaican. And yeah, I was like, dude, I don't have an Amazon Canadian account. Could you grab this book for me? I'll send you the cash, ship it to my house in Florida. And he helped me out with that. Shout out to Kevin. This book was, but when I started reading it, I understood why it might not be readily available. Is because this author went around, interviewed actual victims of the Nanking Massacre, or people that were alive at the time, as well as soldiers from the Japanese side. So she had the Chinese victims as well as the soldiers that were conducting the crimes. You know, I mean, how much more accurate can you get? And of course, it's based on memory and stuff like that. So it's, you know, some people might doubt that, but I mean, I don't know if you could forget such a horrific event when your family's getting massacred. They call it the Nanking Massacre, massacred around you and all of this stuff. So that's this book. And you know, I grew up with Japan 10 years doing karate in Florida, in Jacksonville, with a Japanese sensei that taught us everything about discipline and all this. And from there I went to Japan, and oh, this is where I want to live, and it's so great. But once I went back to the US, I just had this inkling of like, if I really want to live in Japan on a long-term basis, I really got to understand. Welcome to the show, Manuel. Long time no see. Here talking about research I did for a specific book called The Nanking Revolution. And went back to the US. I knew I had to keep myself intellectually humble. So that is why I bought these books, very hard to come by. Not available on Amazon, if you think about it. Not available in the libraries. But I got them. I think I got this one from like Australia or something. This was where did I get this from? This is a used book, actually, no? Yeah, but I think I bought it online. Yeah, I bought it online. Oh, it was a bookdepository.com. Bookdepository.com, which has like a huge depository of books. And I found this, and I was like, oh shit. scooped it up real quick, and let me tell you, the weeks and months I spent locked in that room writing books, reading this stuff, it was pretty traumatizing. Pretty traumatizing, but necessary. And a lot of Japanese people are not aware of the crimes the Japanese military conducted in Asia at the time. This one was pretty surprising too. They had like, you can see how he like split, basically organizes it by different types of, it wasn't just China. This book, I didn't realize that until I got this book actually. There's one, look at, they're even talking about cannibalism in this shit. But, oh, also, I think Indonesia, and I think they had something in Australia as well. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, they had Australian prisoners of war. The first line of this book is, "Why open Pandora's box? What do you hope to achieve by revealing the painful and horrifying events of the past?" Such are the questions that, as a historian specializing in the study of war crimes committed by Japanese troops during the Asia-Pacific War, I frequently encounter not only from incredulous Japanese people, but also from citizens of former Allied nations against whose soldiers various atrocities were committed by Japanese forces. Yeah. And then it says, to master the past, what the Germans call, and there's like a long-ass German word, and then it says, I believe is the most appropriate answer to such questions. This does not mean simply to comprehend events of the past intellectually, but also to exercise moral imagination. Moral imagination requires us to take responsibility for past wrongdoings and at the same time stimulates us to project our thoughts toward the future through the creative examination of our past. My aim in investigating the war crimes and atrocities committed by the Japanese is therefore to master the past. To this end, I will begin with a general analysis of the war crimes tribunals conducted by the Allied nations. And yeah, pretty intense stuff, but I knew, again, I wanted to keep myself intellectually humble, not just love Japan, all this stuff, discipline, arts. They also pillaged and, you know what comes after that, all that stuff. It was pretty bad. And a lot of Japanese people are not taught this in school, so actually what they're taught is the opposite. It's like, China made it up, it's all lies. And, I mean, every country whitewashes history, right? But it's pretty well known now in the West. And I think it's starting to come to light in Japan as well, little by little. I'm going to make sure I share an important part from this book. Let me see, she's talking about her life and publication of the testimonies, my encounter. Okay, here we go. So this is from this book. This is Torn Memories of Nanking. My encounter with the Nanking Massacre. In 1982, the same year that I became a teacher, a dispute arose over the contents of Japanese history textbooks. This is 80s. There was a further dispute 3 years later concerning Prime Minister Nakasone's visit to Yasukuni Shrine. This is a shrine that honors war criminals that Shinzo Abe, the former prime minister, often visited and caused a lot of controversy. Why are you showing respect to these Class A war criminals? That was the whole conversation. So that's what Yasukuni Shrine is. As teachers, my colleagues and I prepared many supplementary textbooks and ran many classes to educate students about human rights in decor art plants. Welcome to the show. We're talking about research I did for the Nanking Massacre. This is my book, The Nanking Revolution. Very controversial topic in Japan and across the world. Not often talked about in Japan, so I'm reading a section from this book, Torn Memories of Nanking, written by a Japanese journalist that interviewed different victims and perpetrators during war. Victims on the Chinese side and soldiers that perpetrated the crimes against these victims on the Japanese side. Right. As teachers, my colleagues and I prepared many supplementary textbooks and ran many classes to educate students about human rights in addition to advancing the cause of peace. I also had the chance to teach history to higher grade elementary school students. The history textbook that was used began with an ancient history, while the Japanese modernization process was proudly presented in the section on modern and contemporary history. As far as the Second World War was concerned, the textbook emphasized the damage caused by air raids on Tokyo and the atomic bombs, but made little mention of the Japanese war and invasion. Yeah, that's always right. We were the victims. Nuclear bombs, etc., but they didn't talk about what they did in China and the rest of the Asia-Pacific region. Doubting that these textbooks reflected the true course of history, I started reading and investigating other history books. With love, Gigi, welcome to the show. We're talking about different books that I write and the research that goes into them. I started reading and investigating other history books. For the first time, I learned many concrete facts regarding the Japanese colonization of Asia and the invasion of China, particularly details concerning the Nanking Massacre. Realizing that the information contained in these books was inadequate for the purpose of teaching history to my students, I decided to go to China, which had suffered tremendously from the Japanese invasion, and see the results of this damage for myself. Denial of the Nanking Massacre. Remember the Holocaust denial, same thing. Denial of the Nanking Massacre was prevalent in Japanese schools during the 1980s, as well as the belief that the event had never happened, as I said before. The mass media was full of lively commentary that lent credence to this thesis. By contrast, the stories that I was hearing from the victims were horrendous and miserable. Representing the truth, something only those who had continually experienced these events could recount. Yeah, people in China and other parts of Asia were discriminated against and treated as subhuman by the Japanese Imperial Army. This army killed, burned, and looted in a merciless fashion in the cities that it invaded. In order to provide children with a better understanding of the truth concerning Japanese aggression in Asia, I prepared study handouts in simple language using historical materials and the testimonies of victims that describe the real experiences of those who had struggled against the Japanese invasion. By coming to know the terrible facts of the invasion as well as information about people's resistance to it, I hoped that the children I taught would acquire the ability to learn and think in such a way that Japan would never repeat the same kind of mistakes in the future. Critical thinking, that was her goal, to instill the skills of critical thinking into the next generation so that that shit wouldn't happen again. And so she goes on to talk about her research and... Oh, wait. That reminds me, I bought a movie actually about this. And I'm wondering if the movie was connected to this. I bought it in Taiwan because that's the only place that it was available. One second, I'm going to actually see if that is available. Or if that is here in this room. It should be over here somewhere. Yeah. Born memories. Yeah, there's lots of shit out there. I'm not going to show you this area because it's wild. What is that? Yeah, I'll probably have to search for that another time. Oh no, there it is. Right in front of me. Right in front of me. Oh, let's see. I don't. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think this is the same. I don't think this is the same. This is the DVD that I bought while I was in Taiwan that speaks about Japanese war crimes in World War II in China. And I don't think it's related to this book, but this author also helped produce a movie based on this. So let me see if it's actually... Yeah, this is crazy. So first let me just say this is this is about Taiwanese survivors. So this is not even in China. This is in Taiwan at the time. So the complete moving story of Taiwanese survivors of Japanese military sexual slavery. Whee! Yeah, a secret buried for 50 years. And these are with the victims of that time. You can see on the inner side of this DVD thing, it speaks about that. What does it say? It says, going beyond the tears, making their appeal to history, dedicating their strength to life, offering tenderness to the future. Wow. Comes with a number of different materials. Alright, so yeah. You'll often hear the term comfort women to describe the women that were enlisted in the sexual slavery that took place when Japan took over. And so I think I got this pamphlet when they took over Nanking and also other areas like Taiwan. I got this from the Amma Museum in China, I think. In Taiwan, sorry. And yeah, there's describing the different places, a place to remember, heal, and embark on a journey towards resilience and truth. Man, I am so glad that I spent that time in Taiwan going to this place. Alright, let me read this from this pamphlet, Who the Comfort Women Are. During World War II, when Japan waged what it called the Holy War to dominate East Asia, the Japanese government systematically orchestrated its bureaucratic forces, its government officials, military, police to conscript poor and impoverished women into sex service through deception, abduction, and violence. These women were called the comfort women. The purpose of the comfort women was not only to stabilize army morale, but also to prevent R-word and sexually transmitted diseases so as to ensure combat capacity. The comfort women is in reality a euphemism employed by the Japanese military to gloss over its enslavement of women. Whee! Historical documents put the total figure of the comfort woman at about 400,000 in comfort stations scattered all over Asia. Women from Taiwan, Korea, China, the Philippines, Indonesia, the Netherlands, Malaysia, and East Timor were forced to become military sex slaves. It has been estimated that about 2,000, possibly more, Taiwanese women aged 14 to 30 were victimized. In 1992, a former member of, well, first let me just speak on, that is why most of Asia hates Japan. That is why most of Asia hates Japan, because actually I'm 32, so my parents' generation, like, and their parents, they know about the equivalent of my parents' generation in Japan, is aware of what happened because they got stories passed down from their grandparents. So, listen. Actually, if you think about it, that's only like, yeah, 50 years. That would be my parents experiencing it if they were in Taiwan or whatever, or Nanking. So that is insane to think about. It's not that long ago. Yeah, this reminds me of the same thing with the civil rights movement in the U.S. It's like a lot of people say, that's so long ago. And it was like the 60s. Like, it's not that long. Like, this, right, we got people still alive that were alive during the time. So, 1992, a former member of Japan's House of Representatives discovered 3 telegrams that proved that Taiwanese women were sent to Japan's front lines as sex slaves during World War II. Taipei Women's Rescue Foundation soon established an appeal hotline for survivors to call and started to investigate into the comfort women issue. At that time, 58 survivors were identified. We euphemistically call them Ama, which means grandmother in Taiwanese. And they go on. Oh, they got some survivor stories as well. I think you'd find that interesting. So I'm going to read some of that. Survivor stories. I came from an impoverished family. Jobs were scarce during the war, so if there were job opportunities, people were all eager to go. One day I saw a flyer recruiting nurses for Southeast Asia. I signed up with a friend of mine. A Japanese man and woman took us to Indonesia. We learned that we were to be military comfort women only when we arrived in Indonesia. We quarreled with the Japanese man and woman, but we couldn't go home. The first time I was taken advantage of, I bled. Whee! I wrapped up the stained cloth, hoping to show it to my parents back home. I was forced to receive over 20 soldiers every day. Soldiers during the day and officers at night. I was in great pain whenever the Japanese took out their anger on me. One time I tried to escape, but the military policeman caught me and returned me to the barracks. Filled with grief and hatred, I cried every night. Upon my return to Taiwan, I tossed and turned at night. I couldn't fall asleep. I used to be a clean girl, but I was trashed by the Japanese. God damn! Again, another reminder of why many countries in Asia hate Japan. I was deceived by the Japanese soldiers and became a military comfort woman in 1940. Before we boarded the warship at the harbor, the Japanese military doctor ordered us to undress for a physical checkup. We kept trembling but followed the order. We had to endure the humiliation of being made to strip naked right there. We got off the ship at Canton, which was a battlefield. I was taken to a building where there were many rooms. Each girl was assigned to a room. No matter how terrified I was assaulted by 20 or 30 soldiers daily. I was in so much pain that I wanted to die. Whenever I didn't go along or when the soldiers were drunk, they drew their samurai swords to threaten me. They said they were patriotic soldiers and should be well served. Another one. Oh, it's cool. All of them have that, like I said before, that word ahma, which means grandmother in Taiwanese. All of them have. The first story was Amma Atao. Second one was Amma Hisine. I can't read Chinese, but Amma Hisine. So all of them have that grandmother word of reverence before their actual first name. So I like that. Showing respect to the elders and what they went through. Next story, Amamanme. When I was 17, people told me that cafeterias on Hainan Island were recruiting waitresses. You can see the pattern here. They're getting the women through deception. We're recruiting waitresses, offering higher wages. We were poor and I wanted to help my family, so I decided to go with other girls without telling my parents that I was going abroad because I didn't want them to worry about me. Shu-san, hisashiburi de gozaimasu. Welcome to the show. We're here talking about different research that I did for my book, The Nanking Revolution, back in the day. Alright, when I was 17, we were poor and I wanted to help my family, so I decided to go with other girls without telling my parents that I was going abroad because I didn't want them to worry about me. I ended up in a comfort station on Hainan Island. I was young and beautiful. So the manager of the comfort station ordered me to receive soldiers at any time. I was abused daily by the Japanese soldiers, but had no one to confide in. Again, she was 17, so she was a minor. Another one from Ahma Jin Apai. When I was 17 years old, you see a pattern here? Japanese policemen ordered me to cook and do laundry at the Japanese military barracks. After a month, a soldier ordered us to stay in the barracks. I looked that up actually. The pronunciation. At night, a maid. During the day, my night duty was sex service. I was so young that I didn't know intercourse would result in pregnancy. Even during my pregnancy, I was still R-worded. Only when I started bleeding did I realize there was something wrong. I was taken to the hospital and finally saw that I was having a miscarriage. This nightmare repeated itself until my young life was totally ruined. When Japan was defeated, the soldiers were very depressed and took out their anger on us. They drank and danced with over 20 girls. And right on the tatami, they R-worded us. 2 aboriginals. Losing virginity is very serious. I've been married 4 times, but each marriage ended badly because of my haunting past. I often feel that my life ended the day I became a sex slave. Man. Yeah, it's a very traumatic experience to talk about, and I'm just amazed at the strength of these women to bring up those experiences so other people can be aware of what happened. And I feel my job as an author is to basically translate the current moment, what I'm experiencing in my perspective, through stories. And although it's traumatic, it's my job to process what happened and pass it on. Document what is happening at this time and how I've experienced it. So this organization is super dope and necessary. They're called the Taipei Women's Rescue Foundations, or the TWRF. 1996, they started several series of therapeutic workshops for these ahmas, or the grandmother. Those stories that I just read. The workshops utilize counselors, psychiatrists, and yoga instructors aimed at relieving mental and physical pain through art, drama, photography, and talk therapy. You don't see much about medicine, it's art. Workshops help the survivors move beyond the shadows of their past, shedding their feelings of shame, putting an end to suffering, having considered the Amma's health condition. The last series of workshops ended in 2012. Although the Amma's trauma could not be fully healed through the workshops, they gained friendship, peer support, and personal growth simply by each other's company. It goes to show you the importance of art. When people ask you why is art necessary, This is the reason why I process different human experiences and pass on our ancestors' stories to the next generation. I gotta rewatch this DVD. It's been a while, so yeah, you can see they have different pictures from the shoot inside of this. You can see the different amas. It got older with time. I just want to read a short. Oh wait, it might have been. No, okay. It was produced by this organization I just spoke about, TWRF. So I don't think there's any relation to this. Yeah. So Tamaki Matsuoka is a Japanese teacher, researcher, activist, has been committed to giving a voice to the silenced victims of the Nanking Massacre and a final chance to the perpetrators to come to terms with their own past, a very dark and unspeakable past. Matsuoka's life journey and involvement into a woman with tremendous courage, compassion, and a passion for justice and humanity is one that can serve as a source of inspiration to all those who are too afraid to cross the line between bystander and upstander. You see how relevant this is to current events in the world, Ukraine, and the Middle East. It is insane. Let me see here. So I want to read the. Oh wow! They show them in amazing. They show them in bridal gowns. Wow. Yeah, man, that's crazy. That's so insane. They're talking about the different fruit testimony of life. Oh, they're even talking about the high schoolers' reaction. So, okay. This is Testimony of Life. This is from the producer. 1992, Taipei Women's Rescue Foundation was entrusted by the Taiwanese government to take care of comfort women. Women who had been deceived and lured into slavery by the Japanese military during World War II. A total of 58 women were confirmed as survivors. It was not until 1998 that we received approval from the board of the Taipei Women's Rescue Foundation to start filming the documentary, A Secret Buried. So that's 6 years later that they got approval. It's painful stuff. You can't just go around and start talking. That's why I made sure that I did my research. I don't want to fuck it up. We interviewed more than 20 women who are interested in being filmed. Ultimately, we chose 13 ladies whose stories we would tell in the documentary. Today, 17 years after the filming, only 4 of them remain alive. You see what I'm saying? Things that have happened in the past, the people that hold the stories in their bodies, the trauma in their bodies are dying. So this shows the importance of documenting what happened through the funnel of art. The most memorable, this is the producer talking, Nancy Wang. The most memorable moment for me was the reaction of many high school girls after the premiere. Nearly 100 of them wrote messages to the ladies. Go, grandmothers, go. Grandmothers, we appreciate you stepping forward to tell your stories. We learned the most valuable lessons about life. Grandmothers, we will back you up. These are high schoolers saying this. We learn the most valuable lessons about life. Grandmothers will back you up. We've never experienced war, but they are definitely frightening. We pray that our generation will never have to go through the violence of war and brutality against women. May the world have peace forever. Grandmothers, you have our respect. We are greatly honored to document this courageous woman's appeal for justice for the traumas they suffered and the testimonies of life. And yeah, this is something that when they speak about the women that were deceived into becoming comfort women, it is something that is still going on today in a different form. And so You see a lot of women being scouted in Japan. These are Japanese women being scouted by Japanese men to play a role in the AV industry or adult video industry. So, if you go to Tokyo, you can see it. Just look for like any guy that's like trying to like run up and catch up to a woman on the street, and she's ignoring him. That's probably a scout. And what they'll say is, at least from what I know, Yuko Hisashi-san, welcome to the show. We're talking about the Nanking Revolution. Charlie Lloyd, welcome to the show. Long time no see. I met Charlie on a cruise. Where are you right now, Charlie? If you go to Tokyo, you will see a scout running up to these women on the street, and they try to like talk to them, chat them up. Welcome, Randy, to the show. We're talking about the Nanking Massacre that happened during World War II. And the research that I did for my book, The Nanking Revolution. And I wrote this book to keep myself intellectually humble. I love Japan, but I also have to see the dark side of it. So that's what we're talking about today. Most of the comfort women that were captured during World War II were deceived, tricked. They were told they were going to get another job as a nurse, as a waitress. Same thing goes on in Tokyo. Obviously, they're not getting massacred, but they're getting recruited into the AV industry or the sex industry. And Scott will run up to them and they'll be like, at least from what I know, hey, want to be a model? You're so beautiful. You can earn this much. And it's always like some astronomical number that is, they can't, typically an average person can't earn at a regular job. They'll offer that and make it basically a irresistible offer. And of course, most women are like, get away from me. Like, I know what that industry does to people. But they always catch some people, like, I don't know, maybe some people are either in financial hardship or they lack self-worth, or they're just super young and naive. And so these scouts are usually really good sweet talkers. They're usually handsome and they're talking to her, and they're not, I mean, they use the tactics that wouldn't typically make a woman feel attracted. So that's how they get some of these women. Oh, you're going to be a model. You can just take pictures. You don't have to show any much skin, etc. And the women that they do get, they go to the studio, they start taking different photos, and they might, over time, all right, make a little, drop the sleeve, or drop the shoulder, then we see a little bit more skin, and from there it starts to escalate, and eventually some of them end up being porn stars. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous, especially for women that are not accustomed to this type of thing. So, well, I mean, most women are not accustomed to that. But you can see the same mentality that was employed during World War II still exists, and it reminds me of a quote. So, yeah, talking for an hour without water. Are you kidding me? That same mentality, right, reminds me of a quote. The societies, and you can tell, I don't forget the exact quote, but it's something along the likes of, you can tell how much a society respects its people or humanity in general by the way they treat their women. And everything we talked about today shows how much Japan respects its people. And that's probably why you see it's violent in that the pressures people feel in everyday society causes a lot of depression, people jumping in front of trains, hanging themselves, and the women that are stuck in the cycle of the industry. And of course, America is the most violent country in the world. I'm from the States. I think a lot of people, it's July 4th, right? It's perfect timing. Independence Day, but America is the most violent country in the world. And although America probably treats its women better than Japan, I think Japan is, out of all the developed countries, I think Japan is probably one of the lowest in terms of women's equality. But yeah, it's very revealing. And so this whole process, that time out to bring everything back, moved from Hokkaido after the time, and I'm ready to write books, spent my time locked in a room reading books like this, doing my research so that I can make sure I speak about historical events with accuracy, but also putting my own spin on it, which is what I did in the Nanking Revolution. Available at brandonchin.net in an 800-page anthology that I called the Ultimate Japan Book Bundle, that you can get for 50% off right now. Go check it out. But yeah, it was very, very revealing. So after I came back from Hokkaido, 3 years, and spending 3 years in Japan and abroad, I also went to Europe and other parts of Asia at the time. I also went to Taiwan at the time. That's where I picked up that stuff. But I realized, I was like, yeah, I gotta, if I'm gonna spend the rest of my life in Japan, I gotta be honest about the society that I live in and am contributing to. And so, writing this book, The Nanking Revolution, again available on brandonchin.net, you will be able to understand and see the delicacy. Welcome to the show, Joy Chin. You'll be able to see the delicacy with which I wrote the story while putting my own spin on it, because I believe, again, as an author, as an artist, my job is to translate the present and translate the different experiences and events that I not personally experienced, but research, read, encounter through my own lens, so that I can tell those stories, pass those stories on to the next generation. So that's what we talked about today. The Nanking Revolution and how hard these damn books were to order. This one was only available in Canada. This one I had to get from like Australia and used. This is just the cover, but yeah. Here we go. Hidden Horrors, Japanese War Crimes. That's my message for today. Stay intellectually humble. Intellectually humble. Yes, I love Japan. Yes, I've spent years here. Yes, I grew up 10 years practicing karate under a Japanese sensei, learning discipline, character, inner strength. But still, I'm aware of what the society is, what the society did, and what it currently does to the people living inside of it. And so that's why I'm doing my best to carve my own path living here, instead of the typical flow people go through. Again, I thank you for joining the show. If you want this book, The Nanking Revolution, or to read any other stories about Japan, go to BrandonChin.net, 50% off the Ultimate Japan Book Bundle, 800 pages of stories based in Japan, based on experiences that I've had with people, places, etc. Go get it now, 50% off. Take